We're waiting for Maximus to join, dice. Me lo juro. Ahora dice, we're waiting for Maximus. Yo soy Maximus. Dice, we're waiting for Maximus to join because he's been logged out or whatever. Sí, yo lo he dicho. 18 tío, no amigo. Mira uno.
Maximus, you know you're unmuted. Can anyone see the screen that I'm sharing? Just want to make sure that that's visible.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think, Patrick, we can kick this off.
Okay, perfect. So welcome everyone to this first Discord AMA. I'm very excited about it, that we do it here. I have to admit that it has been a while for me that I was like a very heavy Discord user, so it's good to see all the possibilities here again. So again, welcome everyone. Today's AMA is all about the V3 migration and obviously the Smart Yield platform. So, okay, let's focus on the AMA first, and please everyone mute themselves so there are no noises in the background. So the setup of this AMA will be that Magnus will talk about V3 and Smart Yield. Obviously, thanks everyone for all the questions that are sent to us. We will try to go through all over the questions that we have received and answer them. And if there's at the end of the AMA still some time left for us, we can also look at questions that are still coming in the chat. Let me first start with a few quick announcements. One I'm really happy about is that starting from today, we've added a new team member to our admin team, and that's Chrissy. You might all know Chrissy already from the community, has been a really valuable community member, helping everyone in the chat, answering questions for a long time. So yeah, basically has already this moderation role, and yeah, now he's also officially admin since today. Maybe you want to say something quickly, Chrissy. I don't want to put you on the spot, but in case you want to, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Glad to be here and looking forward to interacting with you as we go forward.
Great, thanks, Chrissy. Looking forward to work with you. So I'm just looking quickly if everyone is still muted because I still was hearing some sounds. So Ricardo, I'm going to mute you also now. Courtesy, I'm going to mute you quickly. So everyone will be muted now, so that only me and Magnus are unmuted. So, and the other one I want to talk about quickly, as we all know, we had some lecture winners. I was abroad for a while, so not at my hometown in Amsterdam. I just got back, so I have now the possibility to send all the ledgers to the winners. So that should happen this week, and of course, depending on where you live on the globe, it will take a while for them to arrive, but we stay in touch with you guys to see if everything goes as planned. So then let's kick off with this AMA. I see I'm going to mute someone still. Yeah, all right. So Magnus, you're there, right? Everything working for you?
Yep, all working for me.
All right, cool. So maybe let's start with the migration. So that is the, let's say, so-called relaunch, as we also know it, V3. So it has different names. So there have been some questions sent to us about V3. Of course, we can go over each of the questions, but maybe it's good maybe to do a general introduction about V3, why we are doing it, and what the main changes are. And then I'll listen to you, Magnus, and if there are any questions that you have not covered, I will ask them to you separately.
Sounds good. So I'll give a little bit of history about the Sensi project just to start. Like Patrick was saying, the V3 launch will be the third version of our token. We've gone through a few different iterations over the last 8 months, pretty much. When Sensi first launched, it was launched as Sensible Finance, and we've kind of evolved quite a lot since then. We've made a few changes to the way the tokenomics work just to make it more efficient. But I think the biggest change between V2 and V3 is making us more compatible with the larger centralized exchanges. So some of you may have noticed that initially in V2 we had quite a push towards listing on the centralized exchanges, but we kind of slowed that down a little bit because some of the feedback we got was that the token supply was too large. A lot of exchanges don't like tokens in the trillions in terms of token amounts. So one of the first big changes we'll be making in Sensi v3 is to reduce the supply from 250 trillion down to 250 million. Now, while the total supply will be 250 million, when we migrate, we will also continue to keep the tokens that have already been burned. So in effect, we will actually still be around 230 million when we migrate across. In terms of that process for the migration, we're planning on a couple of different steps for making that process happen. The first big step is that we're going to need to migrate the liquidity across to the new token contract, and at that point we will be freezing the existing Sensi contract. That's really important because we need to understand exactly how many tokens that need to be airdropped on the new contract. And so our plan is that once the Sensi v2 is frozen, we will then start the airdrop of Sensi v3. What you'll find is that if you have existing token holdings right now, your proportion of tokens will be exactly the same as it is right now, but your token holdings will be divided by 10. So the value of your tokens will not be diminished, but the denomination, like the total amount of tokens, will be reduced by a factor of 10. And this is, like I said before, really to get us lined up and ready for our move to the larger centralized exchanges. One of the other changes we're looking at as well is around the tokenomics of the token itself. Right now on Sensi v2, there is a flat tax on the buy and the sell. It's the same, it's 4%. Currently we have some of those tokens being sent to be burned, and some of those tokens are currently being used to top up the marketing development funds at the moment. Going into v3, we need something we've learned over the project so far is that to be effective in building the price, we need to do marketing. Everyone's been asking about marketing. You're totally right. We agree with you. The problem, or at least the challenge we've faced up until now, has been raising enough funds to do the marketing, because right now that's totally dependent on the volume. So that's one of the other changes for v3. We're going to be looking at the tokenomics to increase our marketing budget so that we can actually go and engage more influencers, get more articles published onto the larger areas where people are actually reading, getting more eyes on our project. And alongside that, we need to be able to continue the development of the project. Just because we've finished phase 1 of Smart Yield doesn't mean it stops here. So we need to continually, develop the project further. The good news is the more volume and the better we can do with the price when Smart Yield launches, the more developments we can continue to do after that as well. Okay, let me check if I've missed any questions here. So one of the questions was asked, will the contract have any burn mechanism? The answer is yes. And in fact, we're going to continue with the same burn mechanism that we have right now. And Sensi is actually quite unique in the way that we do burns. Traditional or a lot of other tokens, when they do burns, they send the tokens to the dead wallet, right? They send it to that 000 dead address. For us, the way that burning works within Sensi is we actually reduce the total supply of the token. And that way, all of the tools like BSC scan, the DeFi aggregator tools, all of the chart tools, when they're actually monitoring our total supply, they're showing the accurate number, including the burned tokens. So it actually reduces down as you watch it. So we're going to continue that burn mechanism. It's going to stay the same. And so yes, we will continue to have burning in v3. So someone asked a question here about migrating coins v2 to v3 without losing any coins. So that's a great question there. We want to make sure that this migration is as smooth as possible, and to make that as smooth as possible, all you have to do is be holding your Sensi either in Sensi locking or in your wallet. If you are currently with your tokens locked in the locking contract, your tokens will be migrated to the locking contract in V3 as well. So you won't have to change anything. The terms and everything will stay the same. You will just continue on as you were, but with the new token supply number. If you're currently invested using Olive, for example, one thing that we would recommend, this is not right now, we'll make an announcement, but one of the things that will make the migration simple is to withdraw your tokens from Olive in the meantime while we look at our options for Olive and V3. If you convert your LP tokens back to Sensi, that will make the migration a lot simpler. But just on that part, we will release some more notifications and make things easier to understand as the time gets closer. Question here, what will happen to the price from V3? Will we start from zero market cap, or will the market cap be the same from V2? That's a great question, because we will actually be migrating the liquidity from the existing contract to the new contract. That's important because it means that we'll have the same amount of BNB backing our Sensi. And so because we're reducing the supply by a factor of 10, so going from trillions down to billions, or potentially millions, we'll see. The price will increase in the opposite direction. So the value of the Sensi token, we're going to drop a few zeros because of that. So the market cap will not be starting from zero. We'll be starting from as close as market cap as we have right now as we can manage. Patrick, did you want to check if there's anything I've missed here? Feel free to ask any other ones.
I think it's pretty clear. Maybe to come back on that Olive topic, I think most of the liquidity is provided by us as a project. In case there are any holders that are providing LP tokens and they are not migrating back to normal Sensi tokens on time once we do the airdrop, I assume this is something we can still do afterwards, right? Because we will reserve that portion of tokens for them then. Just to clear that up.
Yes, the easiest option would be to well, if you are holding LP tokens right now, please message the team and we will work with you to make sure that the migration is smooth. We'll work with you directly on that, so please message us if you do have LP tokens.
Maybe also good to mention DigiFinex here, because there might also be people holding tokens on DigiFinex. For that, I assume applies the same thing. We could work with DigiFinex to get the migration done with them, but preferably we want to do it like straight to the wallets and not to DigiFinex. Also have to say that with DigiFinex, there's a good chance that we might delist our token from DigiFinex. Simply because of the fact that the volume on DigiFinex is pretty disappointing. It cost us quite a bit of money to maintain the listing on DigiFinex, while it seems not to be super beneficial for us. Instead, we see us more focusing on getting more fiat on-ramps in the future, and getting on more popular exchanges rather than the small ones like DigiFinex that aren't bringing much. So in the end, I think when we do the migration, we should definitely also focus on asking people to bring back their tokens from DigiFinex to the wallets, so that it's easier for us to do the airdrop.
Awesome. Yeah. I have seen a comment there about Trust Wallet. So some people are holding their Sensi in their wallet, and the wallet app they're using right now is Trust Wallet. You will find right now that Trust Wallet hasn't in the past had as much compatibility with the Sensi dApp. This is something we're looking to fix in the future, so we'll keep people updated on the progress of that. There won't be any major changes to the Sensi dApp between V2 and V3, so it's going to be something coming a little bit later on. And there's a question there, will we be renaming the token between V2 and V3? No. We'll be keeping the same Sensi name. That'll be continuing as it is.
Exactly, yeah. And I see also in the general questions, maybe we can take that one here as well. Like, how does it work with CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko? Well, since we are going to a new contract and basically a new token, we also will do a new application for listing of that token, which means that we also have a new chart coming up as well. Obviously, it will be a process to get listed again. It always takes time. So yeah, bear with us. The token will be listed on those sites, probably not immediately upon launch, because this is always a process with those third parties to get listed. But of course, it will happen.
Awesome.
All right, maybe a quick look at the chat. Yin Yang, is there anything, like 1 or 2 questions we can take from the chat in regards to V3 before we jump to Smart Yield?
Based on our Telegram, there's nothing much now, but I'll be looking at our Discord in a moment. Just give me a moment. Yeah, no, we're good to go.
Okay.
All right. I think this is the part where you want to share your screen, right?
Sure. Yeah. So let's move and start talking about Smart Yield. This is, I suppose, what most people are here to learn about. So Smart Yield, it used to be known as Smart Staking. This has been, I guess, the main unique selling point of Sensi ever since we launched back in April, May. So it's been a long time coming to get to this point. We've gone through our alpha testing as Smart Staking, and then we were able to engage our development partner, FirstBridge, to actually start building the product properly. And we're finally on the home stretch with the code. So we've been doing regular code reviews with the FirstBridge team, just making sure that everything's kind of lined up. And last week, I was able to build our half of the project and kind of get that tested and working with the FirstBridge team. We actually have a showcase with them next week between the Sensi team and FirstBridge, just to go through the final end-to-end process. That's where we get to validate together whether or not we're happy with the features. Now, in terms of the development process, this is a software project, and I know people are itching and really excited to actually see the product and see the effect it's going to have on the chart. But we really appreciate everybody's patience for the process. You know, sometimes, well, we started off with a very detailed and quite complicated process, and we've had to spend a bit of time really understanding, and there's actually some really unique bits of code that we have in the project that not a lot of other projects have, and so we're pretty proud of that. So before I get into most of the questions that people ask about V3, what I thought I would do is quickly maybe give an overview of how the project works from a smart contract point of view. I don't have to show the code, but if anyone's interested, I don't mind explaining a little bit how it works. But what I'll show just to start off is a bit of a diagram that explains kind of the flow and the different pieces involved with Smart Yield. So it's pretty simple high-level design here. The Smart Yield system, or the product, is built from 2 different smart contracts. And I'll explain a little bit why we separated them later on. But to keep it simple, the first block here on the left-hand side, the Smart Yield core, that's basically, it manages the funds going in and out of the system. So whenever you make a deposit with your MetaMask or your Trust wallet or whatever wallet you're going to use, when you deposit your BNB into the Smart Yield core contract, it handles issuing you essentially what we call a share of the portfolio. And when your funds are received into the core contract, what happens is the Smart Yield core passes these funds to our Smart Yielder contract. And the Smart Yielder, this is the guy that does all the hard work. This is the investment contract. And the Smart Yielder essentially takes those funds in the current version and it splits them up across multiple different PancakeSwap liquidity pool farms. Now, we've always said that the first version is going to focus on PancakeSwap, but in the future, we can plug in potentially any other DeFi platform, including potentially across different chains as well. So we are aiming big long term, but in the short term, we want to make sure that we do this properly. And so our first version is going to be pointing at PancakeSwap. Now, to make sure that we are reducing the amount of risk that everybody's exposed to, we want to deposit these funds across multiple different pools and farms within PancakeSwap. And so we'll have an active part of our team actually managing the different yield farms. And we can, from the background, we can tell the smart yielder which farms to invest in. And what happens over time is, another future, I guess, roadmap item is that we'll actually be able to predict the best farm to select based on its relative risk and reward kind of ratio. Because, we want to have some farms that have a higher APY, but we also want to choose a couple of farms that are quite stable to give us, the option to be a little bit safer. So we understand that the community would like a higher risk portfolio option. That is something that we will announce and will allow. But in this very first day one launch, we're going to have a what we call a balanced portfolio. So we'll have a little bit of high risk, but mostly low risk, just to kind of balance it out. And that proves to everybody that the technology works. Immediately after launch, our plan is to actually start working on that higher risk option. And so what happens is every day, the smart yielder contract, it will actually harvest all of the cake that's been collected across all the different farms. And one key difference between our smart stake, which is the beta, the alpha version, and the final version, is we're actually going to put the cake into the cake staking pool inside PancakeSwap. And this means that instead of reinvesting all of the cake, converting it back to BNB and buying into all the farms again, we're actually putting it into the cake pool to auto compound the cake until it's ready for withdrawal. So this is one extra thing that we learned from the alpha that will reduce the risk factor by even more. So this is the end-to-end design. And the reason why we split these two contracts up is, say, for example, in the future, Tree DeFi has some really good farms, or even Olive, for example. Let's say we wanted to allow funds to be deposited into Olive as well. All we have to do is replace the Smart Yielder contract and update Smart Yield Core to point at the new one, and all the investments will continue to work. So that's probably the biggest benefit, is that there will be less redeploying required because we've separated the accounting logic from the investing logic. And that was one of the biggest kind of design hurdles that we had to overcome, one of the technical challenges that we overcame as a team. So I guess that at a high level is kind of how it works. The last thing I'll talk about from the design point of view is what happens when you withdraw. And so what we have here are two options. Essentially, if you need to withdraw your funds right now, you can essentially call like an emergency withdrawal function, and that will allow you to pull your funds out of Smart Stake or out of the Smart Yield contracts immediately. However, the downside is that you will forfeit the current day worth of yield. Now, I mean, compared to the rest of your portfolio, it's a small amount, but that's the penalty for calling the emergency withdrawal. The reason for that is that we need to be able to cover the gas fees and the effect of withdrawing compared to everyone else's funds in the portfolio. But the standard way to withdraw is on any given day, you can mark your portfolio for withdrawal, and once a day, we will basically cash out all of the people who have requested withdrawal all at the same time. So you won't get it immediately. You'll get it at a fixed time every day, similar to how the locking contract pays out daily. You will basically be cashed out of Smart Stake at that time. The benefit of doing it that way is that you receive 100% of your yield, and also it doesn't cost anything to do the withdrawal because we've essentially saved money by doing them all together. So that gives you the flexibility. If you need your funds straight away, you can. However, if it's not as time critical, you can wait till the next withdrawal window, then you can receive the withdrawal for free. So yeah, that's pretty much the high level smart yield design. Were there any questions, Patrick, that I should be able to touch on?
Well, before I dive into that, maybe it's a bit also good to stand still with like how the process goes, and also, for example, how delays can happen, right, in this process, because obviously, as you already mentioned, Magnus, it has been a long wait, not only for the community but also for us as team. We're also, in the end, a community project, means we are part of that community. We should not be seen as a separate group of people from the community. In the end, we're all working on something that we've been waiting for a long time. And it's also not that, for example, it's just First Bridge developing this and we are waiting for them to come to us with the results of their sprints. There's a lot of work being put in this by Magnus. He's absolutely a rock star for Sensi. And I think maybe it's good, Magnus, that you briefly explain what your role is in this, and that it's absolutely not just First Bridge building this, but that it is also a lot of work from your side, and how delays can happen.
That's a good point. So, like Patrick mentioned, not all the development is being done by First Bridge. The majority of the work is being done by First Bridge, and the majority of that work is done here in the Smart Yield core contract. So the separation of responsibilities, essentially, if we got someone unmuted, essentially the main difference is that they're handling all the accounting aspect, making sure that the funds are handled appropriately, and we are handling the investment portion. Because we have been testing and we have been living this for the last 8 months, and we understand the investment strategies behind the auto compounding of the yield, the decision was made for us to build the smart yielder ourselves. And the side benefit of that means that in the future, when we want to add additional smart yielder contracts, we can do that within our team without having to go out to another development company. So by having the development company set up the foundation with the smart yield core contract has been really helpful. And then us building out the first smart yielder and potentially more in the future. To address what Patrick was saying about potential delays, the biggest thing can happen because these two contracts have to talk to each other, they have to be able to send data back and forth between them in the right format. And one of the hardest things that we had to understand with First Bridge was what is the most effective way of doing that. Now, I don't know if you guys have worked in the IT industry before, or specifically with developers, but everybody has in their mind the way they think it should be designed. And so it took us a little while, I guess, to come to an agreement around the safest, most future-proof design. In the end, First Bridge agreed to go with our design, which I think is a pretty good win. Our plan is to continue with the design that we proposed, because it covers the most flexible options in the future. But at times, if they had implemented the contract on the left a little bit differently to how we were expecting, that's where the delays can happen, because it requires a little bit of rewriting, a little bit of rework. So we're on the home stretch now, not long before the contracts are finished, but the one last milestone that we have to achieve is the full end-to-end testing. So we need to prove that there are no errors between the two contracts, that they can communicate effectively. And if there are any changes that need to be made, that's the only reason why any additional time might be required to finish the project. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe just to finish up on that, it's good to know that the frequency of communication with First Bridge is intensifying right now. Normally we had bi-weekly calls with them. Now it's almost weekly. We just had one today with them as well. And next week there is a full demo planned with First Bridge of the code. And I think on Thursday we know whether we will stay on track, right? Timing wise. or whether there might be some changes requested on our side after seeing the demo. And in that case, of course, First Bridge has to estimate whether these changes will lead to some kind of small delay or whether we can stay on track. So we expect in the next week to come up with a new update to the community to see where we are.
Sounds good. Now,
right.
I mean, originally I was planning on jumping into some of the code related to this, but I don't really think. Maybe we can have a separate tech specific session in the future. But if anyone is interested, feel free to make it known in the chat, and we might do more of a deep dive into how it actually works, all of the investment strategies behind the scenes, kind of how the contract can even talk to PancakeSwap on its own. So there's some pretty cool things that we have figured out with this code that not a lot of other projects are doing. So happy to kind of run through that in another session if people are interested.
Sounds good. So let's jump into the questions that we have received to see what's already covered and what's not. I think a lot is already covered. Maybe just start with that question about like the simple example. Someone saying, consider I've put 1 BNB in on March 1st into Smart Yield, and I decide to stop it on March 15th. And on withdrawal, what am I getting back? Is it BNB? I'm aware of the impermanent loss, or is it sensi?
It's a great question, actually. Yeah, I didn't talk about that previously. So the way that reward payouts work within Smart Yield is the deposit currency will be BNB. So you deposit your BNB. In the background, obviously, that BNB gets converted into LP tokens and deposited into the farms, and the Smart Yielder handles kind of all of that process in the background. Now, with Smart Yield, the way you withdraw, you have two balances that you can withdraw. You can withdraw your original deposit, your BNB deposit. If you do that, you have to cash out your entire investment. So maybe I'll rewind a little bit. When you deposit your BNB, you are issued an NFT in return. That NFT represents your investment in Smart Yield. And so whenever you earn rewards, whenever you accrue interest or your dividends, that happens here, that's all recorded against your NFT. And we have different tiers of NFTs based on how big your deposits are and other conditions. And that way your deposits might get less fees or things like that. When it comes to withdrawing, you can withdraw your rewards at any time. Those rewards are paid out in sensi. And if you want to get your original deposit back, that will be paid back out in BNB. It's hard to say, given that you put 1 BNB on March 1st and then you want to stop it on March 15th. Assuming that you've made a profit, you would get back 1 BNB and your profits that would be paid out in sensi. So that's how that would work.
Yeah, thanks for answering that question. Going over a few others, I see we have already covered like the risk profiles there. That of course comes with adding more farms. There's a question like, can Smart Yield handle a big amount of BNB staking?
Short answer is yes. In the alpha, we had a cap on how much people could invest, and that was mostly to protect people's investments. For the final release of Smart Yield, you will be able to deposit as much as you like.
Exactly, yeah. And when it comes to this expansion of Smart Yield after it's launched, of course, we can expand relatively quickly to other farms on the Binance Smart Chain. Can you elaborate a little bit on how that goes if we want to expand to farms on different chains, especially when there's a lot of popularity of farms on different chains?
Yeah, that's a really important part of our roadmap, because for us to be successful, we need to be able to take advantage of the high APYs on farms on other chains as well. So say, for example, there's a whole lot of funds going into Phantom. There's a whole lot of DeFi projects making their way out there at the moment. We're looking at partnering up with bridges at the moment. And so what we can actually do is this Smart Yield contract can actually interact with the bridge. Say there was a bridge here in the middle, and in fact, let me just adjust this slightly. Do this live. So potentially, we might actually include a bridge in the middle of the yield farms, which could be here. And so this would actually allow us to bridge to farms on other chains. So imagine that these PancakeSwap farms were actually, say, SundaeSwap on Cardano, or some other, even Uniswap on ETH. So the bridge allows the smart yielder contract to still exist on BSC, but it can then reach out to other contracts on other chains as well. And so that's really the ultimate for the design, because you can invest in one chain on BSC, but you can have exposure to the APYs of farms on other chains as well. Now, we're a little ways off from being able to support that, but we are starting the discussions with those bridges and other groups at the moment.
Thanks. So then there's a question about like the payout, which happens in Sensi. There's a great question, like what are the benefits of paying the rewards in Sensi for smart yield users and Sensi holders here?
One of the biggest concerns, or one of the biggest considerations we had with Smart Yield was how do we make Smart Yield a positive reinforcement of the Sensi ecosystem? Because you're depositing BNB, we need some way to kind of stimulate additional economic growth within the Sensi token as well. And so when you actually, when you deposit your BNB, you have the option of also including Sensi in your deposit. If you do that, if you lock your Sensi inside the NFT with your BNB, you can actually earn, you can actually have the fees reduced, for example, and that can increase your yield at a faster pace. Now, on the way out of the contract, when you're withdrawing your profits in Sensi, that's important because it allows us to create additional green candles on the chart when it comes to people cashing out. Because we'll do a market buy of Sensi with the profits. And what it also allows us to do is have more Sensi free flowing in the market, which is also important.
Exactly, yeah, and I think on top of that, to complete the story, first of all, of course, the fact that we pay out in Sensi indeed leads to us buying the Sensi first, as you mentioned, so that's a price increasing effect. But also, the part of the Sensi that we gain is being burned still, and also a part of that flows into the locking system that we have for Sensi. So in that sense, we basically top up the reward base for Sensi locking, which then benefits obviously the Sensi holder as well, because you can lock your Sensi still in the locking system when Smart Yield is live.
Yeah. The more successful Smart Yield is, the larger the payments will be on locking as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me go quickly to the file again to see if there's anything. Yeah. So when will Smart Yield be launched? Well, that's already like covered. Obviously, we can't mention an exact date yet. But yeah, end of February is for now what we've heard from our partner. But yeah, definitely our hope is of course Q1, and yeah, we're already at the end of the first month, so we're getting very, very close here. There's a question about the app, Magnus. Will the app.sensi.fi still be the main web application? And maybe for me an addition here, like will there be any changes made to that web application? If so, and how will the security hold against popular crypto hacking that's going on lately? There's multiple questions here in one.
Yeah, there's a few in there together. So I'll start with the dApp piece. So app.sensi.fi is our primary decentralized app, our dApp. And that is going to still be our primary application. We're not going to be doing a major design refresh yet, because the focus has been on actually getting Smart Yield finished. but we do have later on the cards a bit of a design refresh and some new features coming to the DApp as well. So the DApp will still be the single place where you go to do locking to the Sensi relay and also to your smart yield. What was the second part, Patrick?
About the security of the platform.
Yes. And security is obviously very important. The code that we're writing for Smart Yield has gone through multiple peer reviews, but we also are considering our options around auditing as well. We'll see how we go there based on the results of the peer reviews. But one of the major differences about why we might be a little bit safer than a lot of other projects right now is because we're not actually a minting token, and so we don't have a similar attack vector that Flashline attacks might have on the minting function of our contract. We don't have that, so that's kind of eliminated that angle. That's not to say that we're 100% protected, and so that's why security is very important for us. If there are any concerns that come up through the peer reviews and the potential audit, then that will be a focus before we release anything. Yeah.
I see I skipped one maybe important question here where we can do some explanation. So there's someone asking, like, with the market as it is, it feels like a great opportunity to launch Smart Yield on the basis that in alpha it seemed to perform better when BNB went down. However, would we then be in danger of larger losses when the market inevitably goes, or does that depend on the pairs/plan?
Yeah, that really comes down to the investment strategy used inside the Smart Yielder contract. So that's a good point. And some of the things that we learned in the alpha of Smart Stake was that we had chosen a lot of low risk farms. Pretty much 9 out of 10 farms that we had in alpha were low risk. And because of that, because of the fact that they were mostly stable coin backed farms, when the price of BNB went down, the relative price of the other token went up, and we actually made some decent, we made some pretty healthy profits for a little while. Unfortunately, that quickly turned on us when the market suddenly started skyrocketing. So we've put a few measures in place to prevent that, and one of those things is not actually selling the cake that we harvest. Instead, what we do is we put the cake directly into the cake pool, the auto cake pool, and by doing that, the impermanent loss factor is majorly reduced. Instead, the cake never gets sold until you actually withdraw, and at that point, you lock in whatever yield that you have accumulated.
Yeah, makes sense. So I'm also going through some of the questions that are being received in the chat. Let me see. So there's a question like, how could Sensi sustain in a bear market?
Yeah, a lot of that.
The one where we just had.
Yeah, it's very similar answer in that it really depends on the farms that Smart Yield is actually invested in. And so what we're planning to do is have a more active eye on swapping out the farms as the market conditions change. We need to be selecting farms that provide APYs that are favorable in the down market, for example.
Yeah, I need to also realize that even if the market's going down, the product is not disappearing, right? There will always be people that want to stake BNB. And as long as that happens, the mechanism will work. Also, the buying mechanism that's included in Smart Yield as a product. So obviously, it can happen, of course, that when the market is in the bear market, then the Sensi token will also go down in value. But this is also from a trading point of view and a very personal point of view. Like, do you DCA or not, and how do you prepare for the market to turn again in a bear market, and what kind of a trader you are personally. So it's also not that when you are depositing BNB in a Smart Yield, it's just like a sit back and relax, and you are sure that in 6 months from now you have a better USD value than you had when you put money in. Obviously, you need to keep an eye on the market yourself as well. Like this example that Magnus was was describing about when BNB went down after people deposited their BNBs, and in the meantime the tokens that we invested in went up, and that way it was actually a good decision to invest in Smart Yield. But at some point, yeah, this can turn around, and it's obviously it's also the responsibility of the investor, of the staker, to decide, like, is this a moment for me maybe to take it out or not, and then put it in back later. Obviously, yeah, everyone of course is responsible for their own investments, and yeah, it's not that we as Sensi can guarantee profits over time. Obviously, that's never the case.
One thing I'll add to that is that if you feel like you need to withdraw from Smart Yield, then you should do it. There's no negative effect on the Sensi token or the chart if you withdraw your Smart Yield at any time. So yeah, don't feel bad if your risk tolerance tells you to withdraw. That's no problem.
All right, so I think I'll go back to the file. Unless Yin Yang, there's any questions you think we should take from the chat for now? Maybe the NFT. Is there anything that's asked about NFT still that we should answer? Yeah, there's this question, like, how does NFT fit in with Smart Yield? Is it at the withdrawal point?
The NFT concept is something that I really like. Let me explain the problem that we're solving with the NFT. So right now, if you are investing in, say you're directly investing in BNB BUSD pool on PancakeSwap, the process for doing that would be take your BNB, sell half of it into BUSD, create LP tokens, deposit those into the farm, and then you can start collecting your profits. Now, for you to get out of that farm again, you essentially have to withdraw your LP tokens, withdraw your profit, sell the LP token, or convert the LP token back into the 2 individual tokens, sell the BUSD back to BNB, sell the reward token back to BNB, and then you finally have your result. With NFTs, in this way, instead what you do is you deposit your BNB and we issue you the NFT. And the NFT basically represents your investment. And so over time, the NFT is going to earn rewards. It'll be entitled to rewards inside the Smart Yield pool. Now, let's say, for example, instead of cashing out the NFT, you want to sell that NFT to somebody else. And so the value of your NFT is not just what you originally paid for it. The value of the NFT also includes the yield that has accumulated inside the NFT. And on top of that, if your NFT was issued and it's a rare NFT, for example, there will be opportunities for people to acquire legendary, or what we call them gold, specific different tiers. There'll be different levels. If you have one of those different levels that might have low fees, it might make more sense to actually sell the NFT with the low fees to someone else who wants it for a long term instead of you cashing out. So really what this gives you is another way to liquidate your investment without actually removing it from the Smart Yield pool. And it also gives you another option for increasing the value of your investment based on the rarity of the NFT as well.
Yep, that's totally clear. And also, we will make sure that all the questions that we have received, and also the ones that have been coming in the chat during this AMA, will be answered in writing as well. So there will be a document following with all the questions and answers, also the ones that we are not able to answer, because we're almost making a full hour here. So I would suggest that we go through a few last questions, quick ones, Magnus, because I think you also have some obligations today again, and don't want to take too much of your time as well. And obviously we are always there in chat. The admins will be there, obviously, as we are always available in Telegram and Discord as well. So feel free to ask your questions there, and we'll see if we can already answer some before we release the document, which obviously will take some time. So I think regarding SY, we have handled most of the questions in the file. Some of them have already been answered already as in the first part of the AMA even. So maybe just some quick ones, like around V3 again. Someone asking, like, is it true that whales lose their trillionaire status? I think I can answer that one. Obviously, yes, as a whale, you're now a whale when you have 1 T or more, which is our definition. But since we are reducing our supply by 6 figures, 6 zeros, this will basically then just change to like 1 million, right? So we go to a 230 million supply, circulating supply, where we have now 230 trillion. So yeah, you'll still be a whale, but just with a lower amount of tokens, which have a higher value per token. So the total value of your holding will not change. So once we do the airdrop and we're live with the new token, you'll see a increased value of your token, individual token. So yeah, don't think that the token has been rising overnight so much, but obviously it's just a change, the contract change that has increased the value of the token. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Magnus.
No, that makes sense.
Okay, this is already answered. Okay, new blockchain has been answered. Yeah, there was someone also asking a question about our marketing budget, how we are holding our funds. Is it in BNB only, and does it mean that when BNB goes down in value that our marketing funds are also going down? I think that's an excellent question, right? So to answer that one, yes, we are holding funds in BNB, but we also cash out BNBs into stable coins in case we think that the market might go down. So it's always like a balance between crypto and stable coins that we try to maintain in the future when it comes to our holdings. So yes, indeed, when BNB or crypto in general goes down, that also means that our budgets will go down, but on the other hand, when crypto goes up in value, our budgets also go up. So yeah, it's up to us to try to make best choices in that. But yeah, obviously, a move in the crypto market affects our budget. It can be negative and can be positive. I think then we're pretty much done. So this question about like more SEX listings, central exchange listings, yeah, that has already been covered. So quickly again, we do want to only go for exchanges that we think add a lot of value, where users are with real volume. But yeah, as we have seen in the past, let's say year, people know how to find their ways to decentralized exchanges like Uniswap and PancakeSwap. And in the end, it's all about having a working product. That's also why we focus on that right now. And as soon as you have a working product and you start marketing that working product, people also tend to stay around longer. We've been again waiting for a long time now on the launches of the new contract, the new core smart contract as well as smart yield. And yeah, I strongly believe that once that's behind us and we have successfully proven that what we've been building is actually working, I expect also that our token will be able to rise in a more sustainable way as well. What we have seen now in the past is that we've been growing a lot in holder amount. I believe when we were launching in April, we were around 4,000 holders, where we are right now at 16,500. And yeah, again, when we were at 4,000 holders, we had a lot of super large whales as well. And a lot of these whales have become a whale against a very low initial fiat investment. That was the way we launched. And even before, everyone in this team became even a team member, basically. So we didn't have much influence on that. And that does mean that when we have an initial lift-off like we had in April, May, followed by a general crypto crash, we had some wallets that were hacked of whales. So that actually started a long downtrend and consolidation phase. And then on top of that, people at some point move on because it's a long wait. Not everyone has the patience, of course, to sit it all out till launch. But if you look at this at the holder situation right now, I think we are in a far better situation than we were 6 months ago. We have again 16,500 holders, and also the whales are have less large wallets, so that means that individuals potentially have a less big effect on the chart when they do sell. So yeah, I'm super excited for Sensi's future, and I'm very positive about the coming time. So yeah, I'm super happy that we have again added Chrissy as admin to our team, because yeah, I can imagine that in the busy period that's ahead of us, there will be a lot of questions from everyone about processes, and yeah, it's always good to have more hands on deck then. So yeah, with this, it's exactly 12 o'clock at my time here. I think we should wrap it up, unless there's anyone who wants to ask a very burning question. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions. If so, please raise your hand. I don't know if it's possible here in this channel, or unmute yourself and maybe ask a question that we can take. And if not, then I would like to thank everyone for attending this AMA. And again, the document will come to you as soon as possible with the questions and the answers. And yeah, still feel free to ask your questions in the chat if something pops up after this AMA. So thanks, Magnus, for taking your time.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. So then I'm going to hang up here and see you guys in the regular chats again.
Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, please just ask it in the Telegram chat and I'll just compile them. Alright, thanks.